Name that ghost. If you were to ask many current and retired law enforcement officers on Delmarva, there's a pretty good chance that they would tell you that's a thing within the walls of Delmarva's old jails. Well, we of course want to know more. So we are sitting down this afternoon with historian Mike Dixon. Mike, thank you for rejoining us today.
Well, thanks for having me,
Wonderful.
Jimmy.
Now, this is a thing that's been on your radar for a while?
Well, I actually didn't know it was on my radar. About 15 or 20 years ago, I was working on a social history about the old lockups around Delmarva.
Right.
So I'm interviewing old sheriffs like Sheriff Jones from Somerset and Sheriff Andrew from Caroline County and all around the region, and Sheriff DeWitt. And every time I go to talk to them about the building, they'd want to tell me about the ghosts in their building. So I'm thinking, gee, I probably should have thought of that. I mean, Jimmy, what better place for dark happenings? And if there are ghosts on Delmarva, there's no better place than an old lockup that's been around for centuries.
Wow. So can you share one of the stories with us?
Probably the most dramatic is one day I was doing a history architecture tour of these old buildings. And I'm standing outside, Jimmy, it's about dusk, and we're talking about one of these old jails, and the crowd started shrieking at me. And I said, what? And they said, there's somebody in the building. They
No.
said, oh, yeah. And I said, no, because the building was abandoned. They were getting ready to convert it into a senior center. So, yeah, the stories are common and they're plenty. And as we come up on Halloween, it always reminds me of these events.
Have you discovered anything unexpected? I mean, obviously all of this is unexpected, but I guess that would really take you back, really surprise you?
Well, you know what surprised me was the number of stories, because just about every one of these old lawmen, and these are guys who've been, we're 60, 70, some are 80-year-olds when I'm talking to them, every one of them had these experiences. But think, Jimmy, what went on in 19th century lockups in Delmarva. You know how many people breathed their last in those old jails, watched the scaffold being built, went up on the scaffold, met the hangman's noose, and were executed. Murderers, convicts. I mean, these are some of the darkest spots in Delmarva. And I suppose if there are ghosts around,
yeah,
they're right there.
So these are old buildings, historic law enforcement officers. Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything like that of current times? Do you think it's still going on?
Well, you do. So up in Elkton, at the top of Delmarva, they built this modern detention center, 1980s, replaced the place that had been a jail since 1860s. And if you talk to the prisoners there, many of them will testify that an Indian comes into the jail at night. You see, they built the jail over an old Indian village, and when the Smithsonian came in, they were doing archaeological studies, and they actually found remains, a burial site. So they'll tell you in Elkton that there's still haunts in that old jail.
How about that? Wow. Okay. Gave me something to think about, that's for sure. Historian Mike Dixon, thank you so much for sharing these stories even more.
Thanks, Jimmy.